Elden Ring as a video game is enormous. So the first thing we've got to do is decide what level we can operate on to do that content justice. Hence the decision to focus this content on the Limgrave area, including Weaving Peninsula and Stormveil Castle. So we can really drill into those areas and do all the content of the video game justice there. So after we've done that, we've narrowed that down, we need to play the video game and to understand the experience of what it is like as a player to play the video game, which is, for me and for all of us at Steamforged Games, much more important than trying to adapt everything in the video game to a one-to-one basis board game component. So, for instance, Elden Ring, the combat's about timing. You are constantly trying to take advantage of when the enemy leaves themselves exposed after an attack, or because you've hit them with an item or art of war, so something that disables them and gives you a window. The video game very much is all about identifying these windows and then taking advantage of them. And so we want to do the same thing with the board game. So obviously in a video game it's real time. There's a lot of timing to it, to the reactions, the visual cues, the audio cues. Those don't exist in a board game. So we need to find a way to recreate them somehow. What we've done to recreate them is we've created the battle grid system. So this is definitely unique design that we've brought into Elden Ring, the board game. We've actually been developing it for a long time before we showed it to the public. So that's something that we're really excited to do. And it's more abstract. Normally a grid is spatial. With this, there's two halves to the grid. There's an enemy half and a player half. You don't cross from one half to the other. And not only do you not cross them, when you are further apart on the grid, you are not necessarily further apart physically. Forwards and backwards movement and being further forwards in your half of the grid comparison to the other half of the grid is about stance, it's about aggression. So if I'm at the very back of the grid, I have a defensive bonus. So I could still be standing right next to you and we could have shields raised, completely defended, ready for each other's onslaughts, versus we could be standing an equal distance apart, but we're throwing swords and axes in the air, we're completely exposed, we're going to do a lot of damage if we attack each other. And that's what it represents. From a player-facing perspective, it's all about picking your moments. When you want to be in the front row, when you want to be aggressive, to take advantage of the timing windows. And I'll talk you through how timing windows come to pass. But when they come up, you want to be in the front row to take aggressive advantage of that. When you're in the back row, you want to be in the back row for when the enemies are about to be aggressive and attack you, so you can defend against it and not die. The middle row for players tends to be more utility, so it gives you tactical flexibility, so you don't necessarily know if you want to be in the front row or the back row, or maybe the timing window's a little bit more awkward than you would like them to be. And so having that extra tactical flexibility can really go a long way towards allowing you to take advantage of the small windows that do exist, or even create windows that wouldn't have existed before. And on the enemy side, the enemies, you can push them around, you can break their stance, you can move them backwards and forwards. Their behaviors, their actions they take will also move them forwards and backwards. I'll take the battle grid for Margaret the Fell Omen. There's lots of different battle grids in the game. It's not just that one. He is fought on for over 5 rows. The back 2 rows each give him an extra point of armor. So when he's defending, he reduces all damage from tarnished attacks by 2. That can be quite a lot. There are tarnished that live on doing 5 damage multiple times, and so they really cuts down their damage. When he gets to the front row, his attacks deal more damage, and that's dangerous. You don't want to be there. It really is the difference between taking 1 damage 3 times and taking 3 damage 3 times. Life and death, very much. There's a sweet spot in the middle with those, so rows 1 dangerous, 4, 5 defensive, 2 and 3 is nothing. So there's a sweet spot there where he's not doing more damage, but he's not reducing damage by anything. And you want to time your window around that, because you can, when he's there, expend the cards in your hand to deal loads of damage to him, but not be as afraid of the follow-up damage that he's about to do to you. You'll still have a window to get your hand of cards back to be able to defend yourself. And so through a combination of the enemy positioning themselves through their own behaviors, which you can predict to a degree, and your own abilities to move around the battlefield and to move forwards and backwards and change your stance. You really do have the capacity to plan ahead and act intelligently, as we say, to take advantage of these timing windows, and that's absolutely essential because, as you will also see in our playthrough video, death is a thing. Even when you play clever, you can be caught out. As I was saying earlier, it's a game that adapts the video game. You'll die multiple times over before you've mastered a boss and you can beat it and you can move on. It's very much the same in this, only with those deaths you are able to respawn. There is a limit. You will run out of Stakes America, which is the card that we use to allow you to respawn back into a fight. You run out of those, you will actually lose, but you will go through a boss fight and you will die multiple times over before you're successful, and that's okay. I'll be honest, adapting dying a lot, still making it a fun, engaging, non-frustrating experience for a board game where you've got to do all of the logistics yourself and moving cards around and setting it up was challenging, but we think we're really pleased with how it feels and how it plays at the end. We've really approached the Tarnished builds as one of the key things, not just for your own campaign playthrough, but for repeated playthroughs, and also for a sort of one-shot arena mode that we've developed where you can have access to a huge number of weapons. Changing a weapon can completely change the identity of a Tarnished. On top of that, Tarnished all have a unique trait. It's a special ability that only they have access to. There's a total of 14 Tarnished across the various boxes. They all have their own unique trait. Even 2 versions of an astrologer will have a different trait. So equipping the same weapon on a different Tarnished can completely change the gameplay and the outlook and the capabilities of that weapon. I'm going to go on a limb and say about 30 weapons across everything, and that doesn't include shields. Then when you layer on top of that, there's armors, there's talismans, there's a huge amount of flexibility in the attribute deck, which is, so you'll be used to, players that know the video game will be used to strength, intelligence, dexterity, etc. You put points into those attributes. Those translate to damage with weapons that scale off of those attributes. We've taken that concept and we've turned it into the attribute deck. That's 10 cards. Those cards will all have symbols on them. Those symbols will be those attributes, strength, intelligence, so on. And you're trying to draw cards with symbols that match the weapons and the equipment that you've got. And so there's this degree of having more, let's say, dexterity symbols in my attribute deck will make a dexterity weapon do more damage, but there's still this moment of tension of, am I going to draw the card that has the exact right number of dexterity symbols right now to do the damage that I'm looking for based on the specific profiles of the attack card I played. Then if we move from the attribute deck, which again, highly customizable, to the weapons, almost every weapon in this game has more cards than you are allowed to put in your deck. So if let's say I'm using the astrologer and I've got my staff, I could have between 7 and 10 cards in my deck, but there's actually 20 cards. I don't know that for certain, that's a number. And I've got to pick the 10 cards that I want to put in my deck. So I can, again, highly customize that. I can customize for AoE damage, I can customize for high single target damage, I can focus on casting single big spells or lots of little spells, and I can really, really turn my Tarnished and my build through these decks, these modifications into exactly what I need it to be. And again, that's even before we talk about your combat deck, which is built from your weapon, is actually built from 2 weapons, 2-handed. You'll start the game with an offensive weapon and a defensive weapon, sword and shield. You don't have to keep the shield. You can take the shield off and give yourself another sword. And you'll be incredibly offensive with that build. You're always going to have attack cards in your hand. You never have to manage coming to your turn with loads of defense cards in your hand, or being attacked and you've got no defense cards in your hand, you've only got attack cards. So you can avoid awkward situations like that. However, you also are never ever going to have defensive cards in your hand. So you're going to need other people to try and save you and keep you protected if you make that choice. But again, that's a choice that you and your party can make to really customize not just your build, but how your build fits in to the overall party balance. So I'll start with my favorite one to adapt, That was Margit the Fell Omen. So Margit is really interesting because he's the first moment, for me personally, for the first moment in the video game where I felt like the behavior design of the video game boss demonstrated intelligence. Like, he would react to what I was doing in an intelligent way. He would be defensive when I was aggressive. I had to be a lot cleverer than I had been against other enemies to fight him. Like, the old tactics didn't work anymore. And that as a concept is really interesting to bring into the video game, and how we designed his behavior cards to be almost like a higher level of functioning than other ones in the video game, and how we've designed boss specific mechanics for him to represent that intelligence. So that was a really fun one for us to work on throughout the entirety of game development. My personal favorite is probably Godric. I think he's even though Margit's the first like really intelligent boss that you fight, Godric has this air of he's the first like real demigod, like the first like rune fight, the one that the beginning of the game guides you towards. And he's got that cutscene where he grafts his arm onto the dragon, and it changes the whole thing, and it changes his behavior pattern, and it's just really sticks with me. It's really, really memorable. The game's enormous. There's lots of bosses that we could talk about, but definitely I think Godric's the one that sticks in my mind the most. This was a lot of effort on our parts to determine what the correct way to represent all the various things you experience in the video game. Like you say, there's high-end bosses that are fought on specific arenas at specific times. There are, let's say, lesser bosses that are more like a dangerous field enemy. And then there's grunt level things like a Godric soldier or a demi-human that you'll encounter in multiples all the way throughout, and these enemies don't really pose a threat to you. Not a lot, but you still get a reward for dealing with them. It's still important that you go through exploring everything, finding everything that there is to find, and dealing with all these enemies to build up your strength. So we opted for, there actually ended up being 5, but 3 of them are combat based. So we'll say 3 different types of scenario. There's the combat ones, which we've talked about a lot. That splits into boss, dungeon, and gauntlet. And basically, gauntlet is lots of waves of smaller enemies. Boss is one big boss, dungeon is a mix of both. It's smaller enemies leading up to a boss. Then there's the other 2, and these are, I think, are the ones that answer your question more. I'll start with narrative. So there's sometimes in the video game where you're exploring, but really it's almost like you're taking in your surroundings. It's like you're seeing all the little environmental clues, the little subtle storytelling hints you can get from the terrain, the environment, just the whole design of everything. And so we've done narrative scenarios, which are a lot more descriptive, and they're a lot more, it's like a choose your own adventure journey through it. Again, you're gonna interact with NPCs there, you'll get good descriptions of the terrain and the world. Then there's exploration. So exploration is like a very, very key type of scenario in this game. You explore on a hex grid. It's random, the hexes that you pull. They'll all have different locations on them that do different things. You can find materials, you can find merchants, you can find various resources that are useful to you. You can also, as you do this, find and interact with the various NPCs throughout the world. And it's a huge part of the Elden Ring video game is this emergent storytelling. You just have to roam around the world and explore it to meet these people. And as you start building up, you read weapon descriptions, you talk to an NPC, you follow their quest lines, you build up this big picture of all the factions and all of the conflicting agendas that are going on, all the people that are trying to influence you, or they're trying to block you out on your quest. It's truly enormous, but none of it's on a plate. You have to work for it all, and we really wanted to capture that essence. And so there's a huge depth of exploration that you can do, both in terms of the overworld on hexes, in finding NPCs that evolve an events deck that you'll draw from throughout your travels. In those you can find NPCs, they will give you quests. You can finish those quests to forward events, and through the beginning to the end of the game, through all of the different explorations that you'll do, you'll have discovered a massive amount of trivia and history of the world. But again, none of it is front facing. If you go straight from A to B and never veer off the path, never look for anything, and never search for anything, you'll get to Margate and be like, cool, I'm here now. I got some runes, let's go. Or otherwise you could get there and you could have learned about Bok the Tailor, and you could have learned about the sorceress Selin, and so on, the various people that there are to meet and interact with, and go on and bring them on your journey as much as you go on theirs, because they give you quests and then give you rewards and things. And again, like I've spoke about weapons, I've spoke about talismans and armors and all various other things. You get these by exploring. You find them, but you need to look in the right places. If we wanted to explore everything there is to explore in the lands between and beneath it and above it and off to the side, the box would be the size of a dining table, and those don't fit through doors very well. So practically, in order to deliver a experience that does justice to what the video game provides people, we knew that we had to keep our scope limited, and Limgrave as the starting area of the game felt like a very obvious boundary to put around ourselves. So we really focused on that. We really dug deep into what's in there in the video game, what experience that brings to players, with one eye towards the future, but mostly focused on exactly how deep we could go within that one area to really give people the comprehensive Elden Ring tabletop experience.